peace is a prerequisite for any kind of engagement. And as far as developing countries are concerned, we need our people to mobilize around the development agenda and democratization. They need peace. They need stability to do so. So peace is one of, I think the most important issue that has to be addressed. If you take lack of peace in our neighborhood and the whole African continent and elsewhere, you can see that the economies are dwindling and people are suffering, and ultimately we all live in this globe to have a life that you have to enjoy. If that doesn't exist, then it has remarkably reduces your existence. So we feel that peace is the most important pillar that's necessary. My country is championing to bring peace and tranquility in the Horn of Africa and beyond. With our limited capacity, we are trying our best, looking into the fact that peace is a prerequisite for any kind of development and democratization. So peace is a pillar issue, and fighting terrorism is an existential issue for us. So I think these are the things we have to do together with the global community. And I hope the global community has now understood properly, setting aside their differences and come together to fight terrorism and make our globe and our world a peaceful place to exist. When it comes to the global warming and the climate change, again, this is not just a theoretical, talking. It has become a reality, and if you continue on with this pace, it obviously means that the globe is going to warm beyond 2 degrees centigrade, which exactly means that we are going to relinquish, all of us, and we are going to disappear from this globe in not very long period of time, but within the coming only one generation. So it is something which is outright should be fought for. Ethiopia wants to be a responsible global citizen in this regard, even though our contribution is very minimal to the global greenhouse emission, and the impact of our contribution is very less. But we have to showcase that a country like Ethiopia, which is least developed country, if we contribute this much, we need to have a climate change, take it seriously. I'm glad that some countries like United States, China, and Brazil are now showing up to improve their commitment, but still the commitment is not up to the expectation of the global community, because it is not a joke. This has to be taken care of. So climate change issue, it has become an existential issue for all of us in the global community, and every one of us should be responsible. And Ethiopia will continue to champion, speaking with one voice with our African brothers and sisters, to showcase that Africa is the most vulnerable continent as far as the climate change is concerned, and the global community has a responsibility to act and act quickly. So the competition is not within Africa. It is with the global community, with these poles of growth. So it means that Africa has to integrate very quickly in terms of trade and investment integration, infrastructure integration, which is very essential for movement of the people as well as goods and services, and the fast movement in terms of logistics. All these are necessary for African integration. So African integration is one of our agenda, and in 50 years from now, the 2063 agenda, African agenda, and our short-term plan of 10 years from now is something which we have used as a roadmap to integrate Africa very quickly. While we're doing so, we need to integrate first all the blocks, regional blocks in Africa, regional economic communities. We have 5 regional economic communities that has to integrate. We have COMESA, which, as you mentioned, I'm chairing for as a current chair this time. And I think these are very important issues to integrate Africa to move forward with global competition. As a country, we have to focus on our comparative advantage. And in the Growth and Transformation Agenda 1, the last 5 years, we have focused on boosting agricultural production and productivity, taking agriculture as an engine of growth, because we have huge potential in our agricultural sector in modernizing agriculture. We are moving from subsistence agriculture to commercial agriculture. And that needs, a large number of our smallholder farmers to commercialize. And we have tried to commercialize our farmers, like half of them has become commercial farmers. But we are remaining again with another half. And in GTP2, we have to complete this phase of commercializing the whole farming community. This family farming is very essential. But apart from that, we have to also go for a private sector investment in agriculture. So it means that we have 2 tracks. One, modernizing again our smallholder farming, and the second track is, enhancing private involvement in agricultural production, and especially for agro-processing. So we have to work all the value chain from production up to processing and then marketing. So these are essential areas that we have to see in GTP2. Look, we have to move from agrarian-based economy into industrial-based economy. And that transformation has to slowly take place in GTP2. In GTP1, we have some transformation that has come, but it's not so much so that it's not so visible. So we have to see a visible transformation in GTP2, that the manufacturing sector has to grow very fast and rapid, and therefore the manufacturing share of our GDP has to increase from merely 5% to 8% at the end of GTP2. So, which means that we have to make our manufacturing to grow at least on 24% on average. So, which is very dramatic, fast industrialization that has to take place. And while doing so, we shouldn't ignore small and medium enterprises, which is the basis for equitable development. One of the pillars is rapid, accelerated growth, but it should be shared, equitable growth as well. That's why we focus on smallholder farmers, their modernization, as well as small and medium enterprises, because these are the ones which employ most of our people. But of course, we have to also focus on large-scale manufacturing, and especially our comparative advantage, which is labor-intensive, large-scale manufacturing. The first bottleneck in Africa is infrastructure gap, and we have to fill this infrastructure gap as quickly as possible. That is, if you want to industrialize, you need to have reliable power and electricity. And if that's the case, you have to go for generating electricity from renewable source. My country has chosen a path of development which we call climate resilient green growth development path, which is our comparative advantage as well. Ethiopia is endowed with huge potential from hydro sources, from wind, from geothermal, from biomass, from solar, and from so I think these are very important sectors we have to focus on while generating more power for industrialization. Ethiopia is a hub for Eastern Africa power pool, where we can even export more electricity to our neighboring countries, which are not so much endowed as we do in Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the area where the impeding constraint has to be removed. The second is trade facilitation and logistics issue, which is very essential in order to reduce the cost of transportation. There is huge market failure, market gap, where the private sector is not going to respond quickly. And if the private sector is not ready or willing to respond quickly, then the government has to intervene. I think the government has a huge responsibility to fill the gap where the private sector is not ready or willing to come in. That is the principle we are following. And some people say it's state-led economic growth, but we say no. It is a private sector-led economic growth, but the private sector was not able to go there, so we have to intervene and fill the gap. We are there to fill the gap. We are not the ones as engine of growth. The engine of growth is the private sector. I think our Ethiopia and UK's cooperation is excellent, and excellent in many ways. Number one, UK is our largest donor and supporter in our development cooperation. And we are also the largest recipient of development cooperation fund from UK. So this shows that we are the priority country in the United Kingdom. Simply because Ethiopia utilizes every penny that's supported into development. Our wastage rate is almost near to zero. So that effectiveness of utilizing this fund and aid money is very essential. Our future strategy is to move from aid to trade. And we want more trading investment attraction from UK. It is agro-processing and agro-based industry, which is our comparative advantage. So the UK big firms are now engaged in Ethiopia. Besides, we have big companies also in our comparative advantage in light manufacturing, like leather and leather products, like petards. Mm-hmm. So I think we have a number of UK investors who have shown up today investing in Ethiopia and who are also interested to invest in Ethiopia. So we need more of them to come and invest in my country.